So imagine walking up to your front door, key in hand, and you see this. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. I tell you what, something happened 2 weeks ago that was not on my bingo card. As I was coming into the house and putting my key into the house, in between our garbage can and our recycle can, there was a pair of human legs sitting down. And I didn't know what to expect. I really didn't know. Is it Kimberly? Like, did she, get some really horrible news and she just needed to sit down between two garbage cans? I mean, I had no clue. But as I'm putting my key into
women, we cry in the pantry. Okay.
The pantry, got it. Okay. But as I was putting my key into the lock of the front door, I looked down, and looking up at me is a completely naked woman, and she says, "Don't. Please don't." And I freeze because, again, it was not on my bingo card to have a naked woman, no shoes, no socks. I'm going to get descriptive. No shoes, no socks, no underwear, no bra, no dress, no jeans, no top. Completely birthday suit, sitting in the gravel in between my two garbage cans.
Does she have any lacerations or
bleeding? So I'll get into that because we called 911, obviously, but she, I hadn't looked her over yet because I was still kind of in shock, right? And so I say I put my hand out just in case she was going to rapidly stand up as I opened my door. I was going to put her back down on the ground so that she didn't come in the house. But I said, "Ma'am, it's going to be okay, and I'll be right back." So I go upstairs and walk up the stairs, and I see you at the kitchen table.
Yeah, I was like, who is he talking to? Our kids aren't supposed to come home from school for another 4 hours. Did you just rob us of 4 hours of school we're paying for?
I know,
what are you doing?
So I said, "No, there is a naked woman in between our two garbage cans sitting in the gravel." And Kimberly said, "What?" And I said, all of those words were in English. You just may have not have heard them in that order before because it was an absurd sentence to say. And you said, "Well, should you call 911?" I said, "Well, hold on a second." So I said, "Go get a towel for me, please." And I went and got 2 bottles of water. It was really hot. It was really hot outside. So I go back out and I did go get a firearm and put it in my pocket. And I walked outside and she was gone. She was gone. And I said, "Ma'am?" And she came back round the corner. We're going to be putting some footage up of a security camera of her walking around. Obviously, I'm going to be straining my photo
editor.
Photo editor. Premiere Pro is what I use to edit. I'm going to have to blur all kinds of things out. But still, she comes back around the corner and she is full frontal coming towards me. And so I kind of avert my eyes and I hold out the towel and I said, "Ma'am, this is for your modesty." And she put the towel on and I said, "I have 2 bottles of water here for you because it's really hot. I'll put them down here." And she says, "Well," and she kind of got a little embarrassed and I could see that there was water from the water hose that was there, and it was just absolutely weird as all get out. And she said, "I drank from your hose." And I said, "Well, that's okay. That's okay. We'll make sure that we can get you some fresh water with this bottled water." And so that's what I'd given her. I said, "Well, what seems to be going on?" And she said, "I've been kidnapped and I escaped and they killed my father and my brother." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, it's going to be okay." And then this whole time she was pretty calm, cool, and collected. But then all of a sudden, she became extremely animated and very aggravated. And she said, "It's not going to be okay." And I said, "All right, here's bottled water. I'm going to get you some help." So I go and I call 911, and the operator for 911, I forget, dispatcher, said, "What, 911, what seems to be an emergency?" And I said, "Look, there is a naked woman in my front yard of my house. And I said she's about 5'7", about 150 to 170 pounds, brown eyes, white skin, brown hair, and kind of in a ponytail, not wearing any clothes. And the dispatcher says, so is there identifying clothing that the person's wearing? And I said, yeah, none. I mean, well, part of, again, those words were all in English, and she is wearing nothing. And so he kind of laughs because, obviously I had said that she was wearing nothing. And I said, but now she's wearing a gray towel because I gave her a gray towel. And I said, but she says that she's been kidnapped and that the kidnappers killed her brother and her father. And I said, but the interesting thing is she is clean. She was clean, and she had a tattoo on her left shoulder, but on the by and by, she was relatively clean. Again, being 5'7" and 150 to 170 pounds, she was well fed. She was not malnourished. She did not look like she had been restrained in any way. There were no ligature marks where a cordage would have tied you up, or handcuffs or something like that. And I did notice that her teeth were not meth mouth where your teeth are rotting and stuff like that. And in my opinion, she didn't look like her eyes were pinpoints or blown out like she was high on anything. And so I said, okay, somebody will be there. So I go outside and to let her know that I'd gotten her some assistance, and she was gone, absolutely gone. So I walk around the front of the house. I go around to the side. We live on a little cluster of 9 houses. And here's one of the things that really bothered me. As we're putting up some of this security footage, you're seeing her on the street and multiple cars, at least 15 cars drive by.
She's not waving around any cars, and she is not running.
Well, there's that, but I'm surprised. Nobody has stopped to help her. Nobody has stopped. And so I'm very disappointed. If you saw any of this and you drove by,
person,
shame on you. You should have, at least if you didn't want to stop, you should have called 911. But I was
right.
the only person to do it. And so I'm searching around, and I get a phone call because they asked for my phone number. I get a phone call, and a person identified as the sergeant that was sending 2 of his officers, HPD officers, to our location. And he just wanted some background, so he reiterated, not wearing anything. I said, well, she's wearing a gray towel now. And said, she said she was kidnapped, said that her father and brother were killed. And I said, yes. And I'll remember this forever. He said, well, it's one of 2 things. Either she's lying or she's telling the truth. And in my mind, I was like, we have got Inspector Clouseau here going on. This guy is top of his class to make detective any minute now. I'm sure he's going to do great on the detective exam. She's either lying or she's telling the truth. Profound. Profound. And I think he could hear me through the phone, and I think he got a little embarrassed because I was like, yes, you're absolutely right. She's either lying or telling the truth. And anyway, for those of you that may recall, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice with a specialization in law enforcement. So I was uniquely bemused by this sergeant's, Captain Obvious moment of that. So he said, well, his officers would be there. So they come, and oddly enough, they must have rehearsed this because they also said, well, it's one of 2 things. Either she's telling the truth or she's lying. And I was like, golly, this is like a rehearsed thing.
HPD common phrase or something.
Yeah, I guess so. So anyway, they asked about the drugs, and it sounds like she was on drugs. And I said, well, I gave my observations. Obviously, she's wearing this gray towel. She can keep it if you find her. I don't want it back. And they thought that was pretty funny. So they pulled their weapons and started clearing the cul-de-sac area that we live in, going behind people's houses and stuff like that, identifying themselves and looking for her. But Gone. Absolutely gone. We didn't no clue what happened. One of the things that they said was that if it was true, let's just say it was true, and you said you gave her some water. She didn't take the water, but she took the towel. But if it was true that she needed some help and you were going to go get help, she would have stayed.
Right. And also, she would not have been seen walking calmly on our neighbor's security footage.
Right.
She was just dun, 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 dun. I mean, cool, calm, and collected as could be. Whereas if I had been kidnapped and escaped my kidnapper and had just watched two loved ones get murdered, I would be flagging down cars. I'd be screaming. I would be crying. I'd go up to a gas station. This was in the middle of the day.
Right.
So, the gas stations are open. Like, please help me. Please help me. She did none of that. So, I mean, when I say drugs make you do things you normally would not do, it's not always just murder people or, steal your grandma's jewelry. Sometimes it's show up naked in a stranger's yard.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this was actually brought up by a work colleague of mine, and her theory is maybe the kidnappers went looking for her and grabbed her, pulled her into their car, and that's why the police, couldn't find her. They spent the better part of 2 or 3 hours with canine units and multiple cars driving up and down the street, and they never found her.
Well, I mean, that would make sense, but also, again, you would not be calm, cool, collected, just moseying down the street, not flagging anybody to help you, none of that. So I'm having a hard time believing that. Plus, there are lots of little places, ditches,
right,
in between people's houses, fences, places you can hide.
Right. Well, I mean, here's the biggest thing. She had to have been close by because
she was barefoot.
She was completely barefoot. So she didn't come from 10 miles away or 5 miles away, 3 maybe. But I think walking barefoot at 2 p.m. on hot concrete, you're not really making it very far. And so I went to all the neighbors.
Plus, she'd be a sweaty mess.
Yeah, exactly. And she really didn't look like she had that much perspiration on her. So I went to my neighbors and I said, hey, here's the situation, because a lot of us have children, and so I just
So glad you did not have the children with you.
I'm so glad that I didn't have the children. I would not have been able to explain that.
They would, and plus, every time any little thing happens, they'll remind you about it 14 months later, but yet they can't remember that you told them to put on shoes 5 times already.
Right.
So we would still be hearing about it.
Right. So I talked to some of my fraternity brothers, and
guess what the first question was?
I mean, it's like they rehearsed it. I talked to 3 of my fraternity brothers, and it's like they rehearsed it as well, because the first question out of their mouth was she hot? And I was like, oh my God, you're missing the whole story of what's going on here. And that's the part they wanted to know. No, she was not. As you can clearly see in the footage, she's not. And so, but still, I was like, good God, these guys rehearsed it. The same question in the same amount of time of me telling the story. But still, this was not on my bingo card for that week. And we still, to this day, do not know what happened.
Nope.
But still, to be walking up, and again, we'll have a photograph of a recreation, but you'll be able to see the distance in between the 2 garbage can and recycle bin, and the distance between the houses is it's about only 6 feet in the distance between the houses. But this was, again, just one of those things. It's a story you can't make up unless it really happens to you. But we wanted to bring this story to you, and thanks for tuning in to Azimuth Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all of the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.